Penguin Random House Audio presents The Road to Little Dribbling, More Notes from a Small Island by Bill Bryson, read for you by Nathan Osgood. The Bryson Line, written and performed by Richard Digance.
The Bryson line cuts a small island in half, starting at Bognor and up to Cape Wrath. Destinations both east and then west, pronunciations so hard to digest. Beastly, Eastleigh and Grimsby grim, where hairdressers curl up and dye give a trim. Crossing the Thames, the Trent and the Tyne, we travel the Bryson line. Over to Dover where it all began. Mousehole is muzzled, digest if you can. A nation's peculiarities found. Places as seldom spelt as they sound. Norfolk Broads are narrow and long, so cute and yet grammatically wrong. Eye and tongue seldom combine when you travel the Bryson line. Great Britain is great, so let's not be pedantic. North Seas in the East, Irish Seas, the Atlantic. Faces and places entwine as we travel the Bryson line.
Prologue. One of the things that happens when you get older is that you discover lots of new ways to hurt yourself. Recently, in France, I was hit square on the head by an automatic parking barrier, something I don't think I could have managed in my younger, more alert years. There are really only two ways to get hit on the head by a parking barrier. One is to stand underneath the raised barrier and purposely allow it to fall on you. That is the easy way, obviously. The other method, and this is where a little diminished mental capacity can go a long way, is to forget the barrier you have just seen rise, step into the space it has vacated, and stand with lips pursed while considering your next move, and then be taken completely by surprise as it slams down on your head like a sledgehammer on a spike. That is the method I went for. Let me say right now that this was a serious barrier, like a scaffolding pole with momentum, and it didn't so much fall as crash back into its cradle. The venue for this adventure in cranial trauma was an open-air car park in a pleasant coastal resort in Normandy called Etretat, not far from Deauville, where my wife and I had gone for a few days. I was alone at this point, however, trying to find my way to a cliff-top path at the far side of the car park. But the way was blocked by the barrier, which was too low for a man of my dimensions to duck under, and much too high to vault. As I stood hesitating, a car pulled up. The driver took a ticket, the barrier rose, and the driver drove on through. This was the moment that I chose to step forward and to stand considering my next move, little realizing that it would be mostly downwards. Well, I have never been hit so startlingly and hard. Suddenly I was both the most bewildered and relaxed person in France. My legs buckled and folded beneath me, and my arms grew so independently lively that I managed to smack myself in the face with my elbows. For the next several minutes my walking was, for the most part, involuntarily sideways. A kindly lady helped me to a bench and gave me a square of chocolate, which I found I was still clutching the next morning. As I sat there, another car passed through, and the barrier fell back into place with a reverberating clang. It seemed impossible that I could have survived such a violent blow, but then, because I am a little paranoid and given to private histrionics, I became convinced that I had in fact sustained grave internal injuries, which had not yet revealed themselves. Blood was pooling inside my head like a slowly filling bath, and at some point soon my eyes would roll upwards. I would issue a dull groan and quietly tip over, never to rise again. The positive side of thinking you're about to die is that it does make you glad of the little life that is left to you. I spent most of the following 3 days gazing appreciatively at Deauville, admiring its tidiness and wealth, going for long walks along its beach and promenade, or just sitting and watching the rolling sea and blue sky. Deauville is a very fine town. There are far worse places to tip over. One afternoon, as my wife and I sat on a bench facing the English Channel, I said to her, in my new reflective mood, "I bet whatever seaside town is directly opposite on the English side will be depressed and struggling, while Deauville remains well off and lovely. Why is that, do you suppose?" "No idea," my wife said. She was reading a novel and didn't accept that I was about to die. "What is opposite us?" I asked. "No idea," she said, and turned a page. "Weymouth?" "No idea." "Hove, maybe?" "Which part of no idea are you struggling to get on top of?" I looked on her smartphone. I'm not allowed a smartphone of my own because I would lose it. I don't know how accurate her maps are. They often urge us to go to Michigan or California when we are looking for some place in Worcestershire, but the name that came up on the screen was Bognor Regis. I didn't think anything of this at the time, but soon it would come to seem almost prophetic. I first came to England at the other end of my life, when I was still quite young, just 20. In those days, for a short but intensive period, a very high proportion of all in the world that was worth taking note of came out of Britain. The Beatles, James Bond, Mary Quant and miniskirts, Twiggy and Justin de Villeneuve, Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor's love life, Princess Margaret's love life, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, suit jackets without collars, television series like The Avengers and The Prisoner, spy novels by John le Carré and Len Deighton, Marianne Faithfull and Dusty Springfield, quirky movies starring David Hemmings and Terence Stamp that we didn't quite get in Iowa, Harold Pinter plays that we didn't get at all, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. That was the week that was. The Profumo scandal. Practically everything, really. Advertisements in magazines like the New Yorker and Esquire were full of British products in a way they never would be again. Gilbey's and Tanqueray gin, Harris tweeds, BOAC airliners, Aquascutum suits and Viella shirts, Keen's felted hats, Alan Payne sweaters, Dax trousers, MG and Austin Healey sports cars, 100 varieties of Scotch whiskey. It was clear that if you wanted quality and suavity in your life, it was British goods that were in large part going to supply it. Not all of this made a great deal of sense even then, it must be said. A popular cologne of the day was called Pub. I am not at all sure what resonances that was supposed to evoke. I have been drinking in England for 40 years, and I can't say that I have ever encountered anything in a pub that I would want to rub on my face. Because of all the attention we gave Britain, I thought I knew a fair amount about the place, but I quickly discovered upon arriving that I was very wrong. I couldn't even speak my own language there. In the first few days, I failed to distinguish between collar, C-O-L-L-A-R, and color, C-O-L-O-U-R, khaki, K-H-A-K-I, and car-key, C-A-R-K-E-Y, lettuce, L-E-T-T-E-R-S, and lettuce, L-E-T-T-U-C-E, bed, B-E-D, and bed, B-A-R-E-D, comma, K-A-R-M-A, and comma, C-A-L-M-E-R. Needing a haircut, I ventured into a unisex hairdresser's in Oxford, where the proprietress, a large and vaguely forbidding woman, escorted me to a chair and there informed me crisply, "Your hair will be cut by a vet today." I was taken aback. "Like a person who treats sick animals?" I said, quietly horrified. "No, her name is Yvette," she replied, and with the briefest of gazes into my face made it clear that I was the most exhausting idiot that she had encountered in some time. In a pub, I asked what kind of sandwiches they had. "Ham and cheese," the man said. "Oh, yes, please," I said. "Yes, please what?" he said. "Yes, please, ham and cheese," I said, but with...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?